In this video, we're going to talk about a couple things to wrap up Chapter 3 that I thought might be helpful before you do your My Math Lab homework. So first of all, let's talk about order of operations. So if you remember from what we talked about when we were practicing for the procedural fluency test, P stands for parentheses, E for exponents. All right, M and D, and I put those together because remember you do multiply and divide in the same step from left to right. And then same thing with A and S, you're going to do add and subtract in the same step from left to right. Okay, so most of us have got PEMDAS. Most of us understand what all the letters stand for. The difficulty comes in that sometimes we forget to do multiply and divide in the same step from left to right. Sometimes we forget to do add and subtract in the same step from left to right. So what I really want you guys to focus on, not just with the procedural fluency test for this semester, but with what you're going to see next semester, with what you're going to see on tests, with what you're going to see in my math lab, is to focus on the fact that multiply and divide do not all the multiply and then all the divide. Multiply and divide is multiply and divide in the same step from left to right. Same thing for add and subtract. Okay, so let's look at this one. If I asked you in this particular expression, what should you do first to simplify? Okay, well, most of us are going to get that you should do inside the parentheses, you should do the exponent of 3, right? That's what's going to come first. So now a different question. What should you do last? Well, parentheses come before exponents, so I have to do everything in the parentheses before I can do the exponent. So my exponent in this case is going to come last, which seems a little odd because I have addition, but since the addition is inside the parentheses, it's going to come before the exponent. Okay, same two questions here. What should you do first? Well, multiplication and division, same step from left to right. So I'm actually going to do division first. So therefore, what should we do last? We should do the multiplication last. So I would do 27 divided by 3 and get 9. 9 times 9 is 81. All right, let's do one more. How about this one? What do you think you should do first? All right, you should divide. This is a little bit tricky because people think parentheses. I should do parentheses before division, right? But look inside the parentheses. Is there anything to do there? Not at all. It's just a 3. So because there's nothing inside the parentheses, what operation are those parentheses telling us to do? They're telling us to multiply. And remember, multiply and divide come in the same step from left to right. So in this case, I should divide first, and then I should multiply. So very often, even if you get this one right, and you remember that you should divide before you multiply because division happens to be to the left in this one, when you see this one, the parentheses like spark something in your mind. Oh, P comes first. And you forget that these parentheses are just telling you to multiply. So same idea here. I would divide first and then multiply. All right, the last thing we need to talk about in our multiplication division section is division by 0. So when we divide by 0, what is going to happen? Okay, I want you to look at these two statements and determine which of these two statements is true. Okay, so before I tell you the actual answer, I want to give you an illustration. So let's look. If we think about changing our division sentence into a related multiplication sentence, that might help. So if 9 divided by 0 equals 0, right? Remember, I've got the quotient over here. So when I want to check, what do? I take the quotient and I multiply by the thing I divided by the divisor, and I should get the original number as an answer, right? So remember, with multiplication, the total number of things is our answer. So for division, the total number of things is what I start with. So the total number of things split into this many groups leaves me with this many things in each group, okay, which is what I see here. So I've multiplied my groups and my things in groups to get my total number of things. Okay, so let's do the same thing with this one. Right, here's my total. These are my groups. These are my things in groups. So I end up with this, right? If I multiply these two together, I should get back my total. Okay, so now looking at those two, go back. Which of these statements is true? Well, because this one is false, 0 times 0 does not equal 9, it means this one had to be false to start with. This one is true, and I know this one to be true. 0 divided by anything other than 0 is 0, but you can never divide by 0. If you divide anything other than 0 by 0, you get undefined. 0 divided by 0 is called something different. We call that indeterminate. But for most of the situations that you guys are going to be in, it's just important to know that you cannot divide by 0. The 0 can be divided by anything other than 0, but nothing can be divided by 0. And if you think about trying to make a word problem for this, it doesn't really work out. So if I have 9 total things and I want to split them into 0 groups, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm not sharing my things. I'm putting them in no groups. So on the other hand, if I have 0 things, suppose I play the lottery this weekend and I tell you guys I will split the money evenly if I win. We're all going to share it. Anybody who comes to class. Well, only 9 of you guys show up for class. But you know what? I didn't win the lottery anyway. So I can take the $0 that I won and I can share it with all 9 of you. How much money are all 9 of you going to get? You're all going to get 0 because I have $0 to share. I can put nothing into my 9 groups, but I can't put 9 things into no groups, right? That one doesn't make any sense. This one is a sad, unfortunate thing. Sorry, I did not win the lottery. You guys are getting no money. But it's not that it's illogical, it's just a little bit disappointing. All right, let's try this one. So based on that, can we say that R times W divided by R equals W for all real numbers R and W? Well, in this case, my R's would cancel, right? So does it make sense then that I can make that statement, that I can say it would equal W for all numbers? Not quite, because if R equals 0, 0 times W divided by 0, well, 0 times W is 0, and 0 divided by 0, that's that indeterminate that I mentioned before. So I cannot divide by 0. So a lot of times in your textbook, you'll have a question like this, and it'll have off on the side like a little quote thing, and it'll say that R does not equal 0. I'm not a quote thing, a semicolon. It'll say R does not equal 0, which doesn't affect the working of the problem in any way, except that it makes the problem able to be worked in the first place. If R does equal 0, we are in an impossible situation. We have to establish the fact that R does not equal 0 to even be able to begin to work this problem.